both Dylan Evans and his childhood friend, Mingus Rood, in the novel have been abandoned by their mothers and in many ways abandoned by their fathers as well, who are preoccupied with their lives, making paintings, making music, taking drugs, whatever. The boys live in a Brooklyn neighborhood where you grew up, one that's mixed in terms of race and class, as I said. And Dylan and Mingus come into possession of a ring that was given to Dylan by a homeless man, and this ring enables them to fly, and they use it to fight crime. Fortress of Solitude has a very gritty realism to it. It's a profound, it has a profound street credibility, and it's also a stunning indictment against racism. My question is, why bring superhuman powers into that mix?
That's how it arrived in my mind. The first thing I knew was that I had this image of a very pathetic kind of bum superhero staggeringly flying over the rooftops of the street that I grew up on, and that was this. I received this image and knew it was going to be important, and the entire book proceeds from it. So I can never see it in any other terms, even though the book tricks the reader in a way by seeming like it's going to be grittily realistic, to the exclusion of any funny stuff. For so long, before the superhero wobbles his way over the rooftops, for me, I always knew it began there, and maybe it should have begun. Maybe he should appear on page 1, and I wouldn't ever have to feel defensive about it. But what I do in book after book after book is smash together as urgently and as adamantly as I can things that feel verifiably real, everyday stuff, textures of the prosaic and dreamlike material. And I've done it in all the different ways I can think to do it. The combinations are sort of different every time out. And I think The Fortress of Solitude, in a way, I do feel it's the best thing I've done so far, with the possible exception of the book I'm finishing right now. But I mean, and I would probably say that it is, in my opinion, for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons that I'm so proud of it is I think it makes that collision that is in some way, the thing I need to do, the only thing I can do. It makes it more pure and more absolute than ever before, which means, you know, the real, the textures of the everyday that are in there are so persuasive that people are always wanting to tell me about their own lives after they've read the book. And that's very moving to me. It means that it feels like it's an important connection between, it's like testimony. And there is a lot of testimony in the book. Experiences from my own school days, but also borrowed stories, things from my brother's life or my best friend's life that I smothered together into these couple of characters. And, you know, I awarded so many different people's experience to these two poor boys in the book, and it's almost overwhelming how much testimony there is in it. But at the same time, I also have the most riotously absurd and obvious fantastic element I've ever, you know, dared to put into operation. It's the corniest one of all. It's a magic ring. It comes straight out of, you know, Tolkien or you know, Wagner or something, or a cereal box. And what does it do? It gives you the two most obvious powers you could have, which are the ones everyone's always fantasizing about and arguing about. And, you know, that's flying and invisibility. And so I just took in a way, the most embarrassingly broad, fantastic thing and smashed it into my, you know, my realism. And so for the people who are going to abreact, it's the most, you know, it's the most objectionable choice I've ever made, but it's really only what I do again and again, just in a more absolute sense. Mm-hmm. You know, what I was going to say is, what the Marvel writers have begun to do with someone like as fallible as Spider-Man was write a little bit against the fantasy, the total compensating fantasy of power that superheroes represented. And what I have tended to do in various ways, and certainly each time I've used the image of the superhero, is write totally against it. You know, the main point about the relationship between the boys and the superheroes in The Fortress of Solitude is that the powers and the heroes can do nothing to help the boys. They're less than useless, or I should say worse than useless. And of course I kind of recapitulated this just now in a comic book I wrote called Omega the Unknown, where again, you know, the last thing an urban kid needs is to have a superhero hanging around in his life. That's just another disaster for, you know, in terms of trying to survive the daily life in a junior high school.